Conde, Hermanos, Chapter 16. It was a hasty wedding, an elopement really, thrown together on the spur of the moment and held at the Santa Barbara courthouse. Helen and Lysander stood up for them, Blaze and her own insistence being a flower girl. She simply has the obsession with those children in spring, Helena explained in mock exasperation. She fairly monopolizes the tambourine in the preschool, so I'm told. Well, it's a beguiling image. I imagine that it looks a lot like a fairy tale to a child. I know I've grown very fond of it, Gwen admitted, thinking of how the poster now hung in the entryway, where she had once hung Petal's portrait. She was seated at a large round table in the parlor of El Encanto, with Helena on her left and Paloma's mother, Elspeth, to her right. Elspeth had caught a flight in the early morning from the airport in Palm Springs to Santa Barbara and had returned flight that same afternoon. She found being away from home highly stressful, but somehow had mustered the courage to attend her only child's wedding and meet her new son-in-law. I must hurry back to the poppies, she had given as her excuse. They're blooming this year in profusion, carpets of them, as far as the eye can see, even as we speak. It's not every year that happens, you know. This was true, for it happened only when El Niño weather conditions prevailed and brought heavy winter rains to the desert, which in turn would bring massive amounts of wildflowers in the early spring. I saw a few of your canvases when we visited the gallery last summer. They're breathtaking, Ellen effused. So alive and vibrant with color. They make you wish you could step right into the paintings and walk through them. Why, thank you, Helena. Please come and visit me anytime. Maybe you could even pry my daughter off that gallery and bring her with you. My door's always open, Elspeth answered warmly. I'm a bit of a barnacle, I suppose, but I think I could be persuaded, rejoined Paloma, who was sitting on her mother's right and knew it was not easy for her to extend such invitations. She took it as a promising sign. Alice was in Italy, attending Carnival in Venice. She had sent her regrets along with a quarter sheet of carrot cake, sprinkled liberally with nasturtiums, which she had delivered courtesy of a friend who managed the tea room at the Getty Museum. Lysander was busy with his vintage Nikon camera, taking candids of a happy couple, drinking the requisite glass of champagne with arms entwined, jointly cutting the cake, and managing to look somehow radiantly happy and thoroughly exhausted at the same time. The wedding had been a rather sudden affair, after all. Less than a week ago, they had just finished having dinner at Paloma's cottage, where she had whipped up a simple omelet, and they began to wash the dishes. They had started discussing ways to celebrate their first Valentine's together. Then Jack had just blurted out nervously, "Let's get married!" And Paloma just smiled calmly and said, "Let's." The day which had begun the softly curving sunlight that falls every spring began showing signs of imminent change in the way. As the storm clouds gathered overhead, the wedding party began to say their goodbyes and hurriedly to go to their respective cars. Paloma and Jack retired to their honeymoon suite, which was situated on the grounds near the reflecting pool, still filled with the water lilies that she and Petal had liked to walk to after lunch in her girlfriend. Jack pointed out a large cluster of monarch butterflies that hung like dead leaves in the eucalyptus tree near the front door. They choose branches quite strategically, you know, based on maximum wind and rain protection, Jack noted. They'll be fine in the storm, but I suggest we throw a log on the fireplace. Helen and Lysander had often offered to drop Elspeth off at the airport, where her flight was still miraculously taking off on schedule. They were staying overnight at the Montecito Inn and taking Blaze to the zoo the next day, weather permitting. Gwen was the only one who was heading back to Los Angeles directly, as she knew 2 hungry cats would be waiting for her when she arrived at what she hoped would be a reasonable hour. Heavy rains always could be counted upon to cause accidents and mudslides along Pacific Coast Highway. Traffic, however, seemed inordinately slow, even for a rainy afternoon on Highway 1. The usual congestion out of Santa Barbara ordinarily would indicate an accident ahead at Muscle Shoals. But even past that point, the traffic did not let up. And then she remembered why. Of course, Valentine's Day, the day which all the roads, northbound and southbound, led to Malibu for dinner. There was nothing left to do but endure the bumper-to-bumper traffic on Highway 1 on her way home. Staring out at the windshield at all but blinded by the torrential downpour, she found it comforting to stare at the regular motion of the windshield wipers, marking time evenly, like a metronome. None, never missing a beat. She turned on the car heater and wished she had ordered a hot coffee to go, getting on the road. But with the temperature noticeably dropping, she wondered out loud, who are all these people? She thought how it could there possibly be so many sweethearts all in one place, desiring to eat at the window table at some seafood restaurant in Malibu. And of course, the question she rarely asked herself came up next. Why was she not among them? It took 3.5 hours for her to complete the normally 2-hour trip. Bartholomew and Blaise were waiting by the front door in the dark, obviously worried for her safe return. Cold and wet, she reached down and gave Mew a reassuring scratch on the head as she scooped up Blaise into her arms and cried into her soft fur, I'm home. The next morning at work, Gwen was surprised to find a small heart-shaped box of chocolates on her desk, along with a single red, long-stemmed rose. Mi cielo, where were you yesterday? I celebrated Dia de San Valentin without mi buena amiga, and it was lonely without you. Did you bring my Valentine today? Rogelio asked expectantly, and then added, I was so worried about you. It rained so hard. Rogelio, I was all right. I went to a wedding in Santa Barbara, that's all. She said, not realizing he would be take such exception to him, and was genuinely touched by it. Thank you for the candy and the rose. That was very sweet of you. And where is mine? He asked with a knitted brow. Your what? Gwendolyn asked back, now a little confused. Valentine's Day is for sweethearts, Emil. She tried to explain as gently as possible. Not in Mexico, he said, undisguised indignation at the typical way Americans could always be counted on to trivialize important holidays. In Mexico, he continued, it is el Día de Amor y Amistad. Amistad, Gwen said, looking even more puzzled. Friendship, he said, utterly exasperated. Gwendolina, you and I, we know all about sweethearts. They come, they go. They help us, they hurt us. We cannot depend on them. But friends, they never leave us. They never hurt us. They can always be depended on. You see, friendship is the highest form of love. And we are friends, no? We are friends, Gwen said emphatically, dispelling any doubt. Then next year, do not forget me on this day, even if you have a sweetheart. I will not forget you ever, he said profoundly. I will remember, she assured Rogelio, but could not help asking, do you think we'll ever find love again? Of course not, he said, this time, breaking into a broad smile. Gwendolina, have I taught you nothing? We can never find love, mi amor. It finds us siempre. It's the law of physics, remember? Love returns to love. Oh, yes, Gwen rejoined, opening a box of chocolates and offering him one. How could I have forgotten?